Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a fascinating and honestly kind of chilling psychological phenomenon today. We're exploring why that universally loved end of the school year, that glorious transition right into summer vacation, can sometimes breed this terrifyingly false sense of security. Because think about it. When the books close and the days get longer, our guard naturally just drops. But as the source material we're looking at today shows us, that sudden relaxation, it can leave us incredibly vulnerable. Have you ever felt completely, undeniably safe during that breezy transition into summer, only to realize way too late that your guard was down at the absolute worst possible moment? It's a jarring thought, right? We associate the end of the school year with freedom, pool parties, and warm nights. We definitely do not associate it with the harsh, cold reality of physical danger. But what actually happens when that cozy bubble of summer safety becomes a trap?
To understand how this happens, we really need to look at how we process fear. So, an urban legend is basically a horrific story circulated as truth, often used to mask a much darker reality. See, we often comfort ourselves with supernatural myths, ghosts, curses, all that stuff, to avoid facing the tangible, flesh-and-blood dangers lurking in the dark. It's just easier for our brains to process a ghost story than to accept that a real, dangerous human being might be hiding nearby. Keep this in mind because clinging to a harmless ghost story nearly cost a group of students their lives.
Part 1. Terror in the School Basement. Let's get into it. We've got a group of self-proclaimed nerds, your classic honor roll teacher's pet types, who decide to break into their old private school on the last day of classes. And this wasn't just any school. It used to be a 1950s tuberculosis hospital, complete with deeply ingrained local rumors about underground body disposal tunnels. I mean, it's the absolute perfect recipe for an urban legend.
Okay, so the whole reason these kids are breaking in is because of a bully named Steve. A few weeks prior, Steve was actually expelled for breaking in himself and pulling this elaborate horror movie-style prank. He stole red paint and wrote classic tropes like "death is coming" across the lockers. But here's the thing. When Steve was caught, he was screaming in absolute terror, claiming he'd been chased out by evil whispers and moving shadows down in the basement.
Now, the rest of the school thought Steve was so brave for surviving an encounter with spirits. But our honor roll group, they thought he was just a lying punk. So they come up with this plan. Break in quietly, make their way to the basement, logically prove it's just a basement, and, obviously, do not get caught. The irony here is just thick. You have these brilliant students dressing up in dark hoodies and criminal breaking-in sweatpants, totally convinced that logic is going to protect them from whatever scared a seasoned bully half to death.
And this is exactly where logic completely fails them. Using these cheap little dollar store flashlights, they're navigating this massive, dusty basement filled with unsettling old religious statues, right? They eventually find a small hole in a back wall. So one of the students crawls inside, fully expecting to debunk this myth about tuberculosis tunnels. He hears a whooshing sound that kind of turns into a whisper. But shining his light ahead, he didn't find restless evil spirits. Instead, he found an extremely skinny, shirtless man with vacant, half-opened eyes just squatting silently in the dark.
He freezes. He literally asks if the man is okay. Just silence. Then reality snaps. The man lunges. He crawls forward with terrifying speed, making this unnaturally weird noise. He is feral, he is aggressive, and he reaches out to grab the student as the kid is frantically scrambling backward out of the hole. They manage to sprint up the stairs and escape. But man, what a violent pivot. That comforting illusion of a ghost story? It was actually masking a very real, very dangerous trespasser living right beneath their feet.
All right. Section 2. The Masked Party Stalker. A Halloween in May. We shift from an abandoned school to a quintessential summer celebration. This involves a group of college students returning to their home state and throwing a massive, chaotic party at a secluded mansion. And, injecting a bit of tasteful dark humor here, because they were away at school during October, they decide to throw an absurd Halloween party in May, complete with cheap costumes and candy corn.
Now, what's really interesting here is how this captures the chilling allure used against our narrator, Kip. Kip is hanging by the pool in a cheap hockey mask when he spots this mysterious girl in a bright gold masquerade mask. She silently waves, walks away, and eventually gestures for him to follow her deep into the dark woods at the edge of the sprawling property. Kip actually follows her. He's standing at the tree line, shivering in his swimsuit. Just as he's about to turn back, he hears a soft, alluring whisper from the dark. "Don't go back yet. Come and find me first."
So he steps into the woods. She's flirting with him in the dark, guiding him deeper and deeper. When he's finally inches away to hand her dropped mask back, she lifts her head, and reality just shatters. Kip instantly recognizes her. This isn't some random partygoer. It's a girl he casually dated for a few weeks before breaking it off because of her obsessive behavior. And before he can even process this, a branch snaps. She lunges at him with a metal baseball bat, swinging it directly at his head. Kip dives to the dirt, dodges a second overhead swing, and sprints for his life back to the safety of the loud party.
So the absolutely crucial point here, the detail that takes this from a scary encounter to deeply disturbing psychological territory, is the number 8. This unhinged girl drove 8 entire hours across 2 states to infiltrate a secluded party just to exact violent revenge over a minor, weeks-long relationship. That is wild.
This brings us to a stark reality check. How well do you really know the people you interact with? Kip thought his gentle breakup was a closed chapter, but a harmless boundary to one person can become an absolute obsession in an unstable mind. It's a sobering reminder of the proximity effect of danger and how our actions ripple outward in ways we literally cannot predict or control.
Section 3. The Uninvited Guest. A Teacher's Nightmare. This final story is probably the most unnerving, highlighting the ultimate violation of our most fundamental safety, the safety of our own home.
Let me set the scene for you. It's the afternoon of the very last day of school. The halls are totally empty. A substitute history teacher returns to her classroom to grab her purse, only to find Ben, a brilliant but exceptionally quiet senior, just lingering by her desk. When asked to leave, he doesn't even make eye contact. He slowly walks to the door and delivers this deeply unsettling farewell. "Thank you. I'm sure I'll see you around." A moment later, the teacher notices her purse has been suspiciously moved from inside her desk drawer out onto a chair. Nothing seems stolen, so she brushes it off. Let's look at how this builds from a minor, uncomfortable boundary crossing into a full-blown home invasion. That afternoon, the purse is moved. A few nights later, around midnight, her husband finds muddy footprints near their backyard shed. The next morning, the back door is found slightly ajar. The threat is literally closing in. Finally, at 3 a.m. the following night, unable to sleep, the teacher walks into her hallway and turns on the light.
I really want to slow down here and let this reality sink in. Standing right there in her dark hallway was Ben. He smiled, said, "Hey, Miss Jones, nice house," and stepped into her 7-year-old son's bedroom. By the time her husband rushed in, Ben was already jumping out of a 2-story window to escape. The chilling truth? When Ben moved that purse on the last day of school, he hadn't stolen cash. He had accessed her driver's license. He used her ID to meticulously track her down and invade her home, specifically targeting the room of a young child.
Section 4. The Power of Intuition. Trust your gut. Let's bring these 3 narratives together to explain the core psychological takeaways of these events.
This synthesis shows a really chilling pattern. Looking at these threats side by side reveals exactly how each victim's false sense of security was shattered by a grounded, human threat. The students expected ghostly rumors. They got a feral squatter. Kip expected a fun party flirtation. He got a violent attacker who drove 8 hours for revenge. The teacher thought she was dealing with a polite, quiet student. She was actually dealing with a calculated home intruder. This perfectly highlights what psychologists call the normalcy bias, our dangerous tendency to underestimate the possibility of a disaster, just assuming the environment around us will continue to be as safe as it always has been.
So, this leaves us with 3 vital survival takeaways. First, never ignore sudden unease. Understand that your actions ripple outward. And maintain vigilance, especially in your safest spaces. Think about that substitute teacher. That night at 3 a.m., she couldn't sleep. Something just felt off. If she hadn't listened to that mother's intuition, if she had succumbed to the normalcy bias and stayed in bed for just 10 seconds longer, she never would have caught the intruder stepping into her child's room. Her gut instinct literally saved her family. So I want to leave you lingering on this to consider. As we enjoy the relaxed, open days of summer, remember that our primal instincts are there for a reason. If you woke up to a shadow in your hallway tonight, what would your intuition tell you to do? Trust it. Listen to it. Because as these stories prove, the most terrifying monsters aren't hiding in urban legends. They are very, very human. Thanks for exploring this explainer with me today, and hey, stay safe out there.